Okay, so this is our task for today. We are going to be merging tables in Excel, but we're not going to be using a VLOOKUP. We will use a VLOOKUP to illustrate the differences, but we are going to do a merging using a merging of tables using Power Query. Okay, all right, let's get on our data in these two tables, and you'll want to make it look like the merge table. So this is your first table A, and this is table B. And if we want to really just create that, we can actually just do a VLOOKUP. In fact, I'm gonna create that here. So I'm gonna say this is my pet column. So I'm gonna bring in table 2 into table 1, and this is gonna be my toy column. If I can just spell. Okay, all right, so what we can do is we can actually just do a VLOOKUP. So VLOOKUP, okay, so I want to do, okay, VLOOKUP ID1 in column I and grab me the values in the second column, which is under pet. So I'm gonna do comma 2, comma false. And so, oops, okay, so I did not do that one right. So VLOOKUP, okay, 1 comma this column right here, and I want to grab second column. Okay, so okay, ID number 1 has dog, and that's correct because ID number 1 indeed has a dog pet. But if you look quickly in here, okay, so let's actually populate the whole thing. All right, now, if you look quickly, ID number 3 in table 1 only has one row, Sally. However, in table number 2, ID number 3, Sally, has two rows because she has two different pets. She has a dog and a cat. So therefore, when we do a VLOOKUP, what it actually grabs is the first instance. In this case, it's a dog. So that's why dog has populated here. Now, if we change this one to horse, okay, then that will also become horse. But what about if the data that you wanted is you want to show the two instances, like for instance, on this table, merge table, see this Sally actually has repeated that. And you can't really do this in VLOOKUP. Okay, especially if your data is really huge. So that's why instead of doing a VLOOKUP, we will use a table merge. Okay, so I'm gonna close this one out. This is just for illustration purposes. So I'm gonna go to my the two tables that we'll be working on. So the first one is called details. Let's look at our data first. Okay, so you have 4 columns, and the second table is the additional details. So one is an Excel file and one is a CSV file. Oh, this is not the one that we want. Is this the one that we want? I'm not so sure. Uh, that might be the one that we want. Okay, so I suppose I did not save that one. Okay, yeah, that's the one. All right, so we want the additional details. Okay, so this is the table that we want to bring in, and this one has one. We want to bring in 3. This is the ID. Okay, the ID column, that's the common reference, and they have 3 columns that we want to bring in. Okay, so again, let's look at our data source again. All right, so this is the first one. Okay, so my data details is an Excel file, and my additional details is a CSV file. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start with this one because that's my first table. That meaning that's my main table, and I'm just gonna use I'm gonna highlight one of these, the cell with that has a data. I'm gonna go to data in my ribbon. I'm gonna go and use from table range because the data is already visible. Okay, so now we're bringing this table into Power Query Editor. All right, so this is our table, and then let's bring in the other one. So under Home, New Source, File, and remember that was a CSV, so you need to bring in, take it as a CSV. Navigate to your second data source. It's called Additional Details. All right, so let's do okay, so it looks like this is a good type of data because we can actually clean this one up. Click OK. All right, so this is your additional data. You have a lot of columns that you don't really need. So let's clean that one up. So the columns that we want to keep are this: holding control, completion, this are everything. These are the only columns that you want. So after highlighting the columns that you want, because you have more columns you wanted to delete, so I'm just gonna do remove other columns. And then also we don't really want this null. So I'm just going to go to ID and I'm going to filter that. I'm going to say that's not equal to null. All right, so now this is our cleaned up additional details table. And I'm going to rename this as my main details, I guess. You can name it however you want. All right, so let's do the merging. So the common, at first when you merge, you need to have a common key. In this case, our common key is ID. We only have one common key. So if you want this, okay, so we can either start here or start here. It doesn't really matter as long as you know the type of merging that you want. Okay, I'm gonna start with the main detail. Under home, you go to queries, and there's a drop down there, merge queries, and it will ask you what is the key. Well, for my main table, this is the key. The second one, the second table is called additional details, and that key is that. So I'm highlighting both keys. All right, now there is a join kind. All right, so left outer join, it says all from first. So my first table is the main detail. So all the IDs in there, I want them. But if I do not have a value in the second column, then you just have to put nulls in there. Okay, so basically the main source of data is the main. That is the left outer. If you can also do right outer, which is the opposite, your main source of data will be the second table. You can have full outer, so meaning all IDs in the first column, all IDs from the first table and all IDs from the second table, show them. If they don't have data on the other table, just put nulls. Okay, you also have an inner, meaning only the common ID. So the only the ones that say table one is 1 to 5 and table 2 is 1, 2, and then 6. So the only common IDs there are 1 and 2. So those are the only ones. So um, you may need to like review a little bit on the types of merging. So in this case, we will try the left outer. This is my main data source here. And then I'm going to click OK. All right, then it will create a table. So inside this table is really the second table for each one of these is each one of these ID. So I'm gonna expand this. I'm gonna click this upper right hand icon right here, and it will ask you like what column. So remember we have all these column names on the second table. Do you want to repeat the ID? You already have ID, so you probably don't want that. Do you want the completion column, county column, and date of birth column? So it depends if you want them all. So the good thing about merging is that, say for instance, you have to VLOOKUP 45 columns. There's going to be VLOOKUP 45 times, but we're merging automatically. It will give you all those options, and then you can just check and choose which columns do you really want to bring in. Now, this one right here says use original column name that as prefix. So you can check that or check that depending on what you want. So right now I'm going to keep it there so that you can see, and I'm going to bring in all the 3 columns. All right, so these are the columns. As you can see, the name here is additional details dot completion, and that's because I kept the second table name in there. Okay, that is if you want it. I don't really want it, so I'm gonna undo this step, and I'm gonna expand this again. But this time I'm gonna uncheck this, and I'm gonna uncheck ID because I don't want that to repeat. Okay, so now we have successfully merged them. Now, if any one of these ID has actually repeated, then it will create more rows. Like let's look on the original one. Let's look at the source. On the original one, you have 15 columns here, right? Uh, on the final one, after you did all the transformation, you still have 15, and that means you do not have any repetitions uh, in the additional details. Okay, so meaning you only have one instances for each one. Okay, and we will try to see we will actually try to see if we can edit this. Okay, so let's let me show you this one first. So right now we have completely did a sort of like a VLOOKUP but merging of two columns. Okay. Now if you want to load this, I'm just gonna go close and load two, and you can choose to load it as a set table. For me, normally, personally, I only do the only create connection first because I don't want to show all the tables unnecessarily. And then I'm just gonna pull in the table that I actually really want. So if I want this table, this is the new table now in here to populate. I'm gonna just right click on that, load to, and then click table. All right, so this is my new column of the new table after doing the processing. Now, let's say, let's play around and go back to our additional details, and let's repeat one of the data. So, for instance, this one right here. Let's repeat this guy. Okay, copy. In fact, I'm gonna repeat that a few times. Okay, and maybe I'm gonna change this one right here to um, reading. I can spell that, and maybe change this one to something. We're just playing around with data. Okay, and then maybe I'm gonna change this one to Kawira, and then maybe change this one to I don't know, Soho. Okay. All right, so let's try that. And so now I'm gonna save this. So remember, I have multiple instances of this student ID. I'm gonna save that. I'm gonna close this. I'm gonna go back to our process data, and I'm gonna go back to remember, this is the new table, right? I'm gonna go to data and launch Power Query to go back to my Power Query editor. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna look at this. Right now, this is that data, right? You only have one instance of what this 1408. But if I go refresh all and look at that, so now it's automatically pulling the new updated data. So when you go here and also replace that, your 148088 has multiple rows now. And then this people right here, because we remember we deleted them, so they have null values here, but they're still here because we chose the left outer join. Okay. Now this is if you want all these instances of this person right here to show. Now, if you want to only show one, then you can actually aggregate it depending on how you want to do the aggregation. Okay, so now I'm gonna load this, and if I want this to be if once you close and load, it's not automatically gonna refresh. So what you can do is you click in here and then refresh all, and you can see that there are some changes. We now have 19 rows as opposed to 15 because this student ID has repeated instances. For this one, again, they don't have any data because we overrode it in the original set. Okay, so I hope you can see the benefit of merging using the Power Query editor as opposed to using the lookup. All right, I'll see you. If you have any questions, please let me know.